now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for August 23rd. Well, here we are on a new day, and we have three systems active. Henri, which continues inland across the United States. Linda, which is for some reason a tropical storm still, and Omais, which is weakened down to a depression as it continues northwards in the western Pacific. 55 storms have formed so far this year. That number could increase soon. It is day 84 of Atlantic hurricane season, now with the major added on, and of course Henri is now inland. A certain area of interest is being monitored in the Atlantic. Of course, development won't be coming until the latter portion, probably until the later portion of this week. In the Eastern Pacific, we have hit day 100 of the season, and it's already odd enough with Linda back from the dead still, and of course the remnants of Grace, which became 94E and have a 90% chance of formation, and another AOI right behind it that has a 70% chance of formation. So quite a bit still going on here. In the Western Pacific, we are looking at Tropical Depression Omais, which is weakening and is expected to continue doing so as it heads towards South Korea. Maybe some rain and gusty winds there, but in terms of tropical cyclone impacts, probably not going to be much at this point for there. In the North Indian Ocean, we're not looking at much going on here. It is all quiet, as to be expected for this time of the year, considering the fact that we are still in August, and that is to be expected for this time of year. Activity should not be resuming until either the late portion of September or October, so nothing exciting here yet. Here's the Atlantic satellite imagery, and you can see Henri unravel itself over the last few hours since its landfall, as to be expected. And then of course you can see 94E there kind of pulling itself off the coast, and it looks pretty organized already, and it's definitely undergoing tropical cyclone genesis right now, as you can really see there with the Eastern Pacific satellite imagery now shown up here. And then of course you can see why we have Linda back as a tropical storm with convection it's been producing from its center. Of course, Central Pacific Hurricane Center saying there is none, and that is why they're not even classifying or looking into it. Here's the Western Pacific, and you can hardly see Omais, as almost all the convection with it has been removed or displaced from the center at this point. It is likely that it does degenerate into a remnant low in a few hours or so if it continues to keep up this trend. Elsewhere, there is no development expected in the next few days in what has been a relatively inactive Western Pacific season so far in terms of typhoons. In the North Indian Ocean, we're looking at nothing going on here. The seasonal pattern has seemed to calm down slightly, so that is interesting and worth noting there. Other than that, the Arabian Sea looking normal and really just nothing to really watch for. And the floater, you can see what we have of Henri at this point, the cloud cover extending all the way from the northeastern states all the way into portions of the Demarva, and it is likely that it is going to move relatively slowly the next few days, as it does make a U-turn before exiting through the Gulf of Maine. So of course Henri is a relative slow mover and in no hurry to get out. Here are the sea surface temperatures. They look like this: 30 degrees Celsius hugging the coast of Mexico. And of course the rest of the Eastern Pacific looks around 27 to 28 degrees Celsius. Of course, where Linda is right now is around 27. And of course the Gulf of Mexico looks relatively warm, around 30 degrees Celsius. The Gulf Stream is not really much affected by Henri there, 28 to 29 degrees Celsius still. And then of course much of the Atlantic is still another 27 to 28, if not further. In the North Indian Ocean, we're looking at most of the temperatures being 28 to 29 in the Bay of Bengal, much cooler as you head westwards across the Arabian Sea, still 22 to 24 near Oman. In the Western Pacific, more areas have started to fill up with 30 degrees Celsius isotherms there, especially as you head into the Philippine Sea and of course the South China Sea, especially as you head westward in the Hainan Peninsula there. So definitely some interesting developments going on there. Of course, warmer temperatures being more of an environment for those tropical cyclones to intensify in if the other factors come in as well. And the sea surface temperatures look like this. The subtropics and the Gulf Stream, as well as pretty much most of the Atlantic in general, look relatively warm. Although it seems the Gulf of Mexico did cool down slightly with the passage of Grace there, so that might hold off some things from getting as strong as they could be, but not really much. And here we are on this day. Quite a bit, as you can tell, with what is going on in the Eastern Pacific. Probably the first time I've ever had to use diagonal text with how active it was. The most active day in Eastern Pacific history, with 5 storms in the Eastern Pacific alone. Olive, Ione, Kirsten, Lorraine, and Joyce were active on this day, with Ione and Kirsten being Category 1s, and then of course Mary sitting there alone in the Western Pacific, wondering what was going on in the rest of the world. Just quite an interesting day for sure. It will be remembered until there's another day that beats that. Probably not anytime soon. So, with that brings us to the next names. In the Atlantic, it is Ida followed by Julian. In the Eastern Pacific, it is Marty followed by Nora. And in the Central Pacific, while we may be going back to the future with the next name in the Eastern Pacific, even going to the future, we're still not seeing Honi anytime soon. In the Western Pacific, the next name is Kansan, followed by Chantu, and in the North Indian Ocean, we're still looking out for Gulab and Shaheen. 2 names we're probably not going to be seeing for another month or so, at least for now. Moving on over to the Southern Hemisphere, specifically the Southwestern Indian Ocean, the next name here is Patty, followed by Ruby. In the Southwestern Indian Ocean, it's Anna, followed by Batsire, and in the South Pacific, it's Cody. I'll be back for another Tropical Weather Bulletin tomorrow night.